Hello, and welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on Monday morning. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. So today we're going to talk about energy, and especially managing energy as an introvert. This is a really important topic and often not understood. We have some myths to bust here as usual, and I'm excited to share some thoughts from some of you on this topic. I often hear the main difference between introverts and extroverts is where they get their energy. It is said that introverts get energy from being alone, and extroverts get their energy from being around people. Of course, there's some truth in this statement, but it's greatly oversimplified. As an introvert, the way I'm energized or drained is very important and will be different from my extroverted friends and colleagues. But energy is not the main difference. It's not the only difference. So what's wrong with this statement? First, what makes me an introvert is that more often than not, I'm drawn into my inner world of ideas. A lot of great strengths and creativity and problem solving come from this. This is what makes me an introvert. And because I'm an introvert, I do need to recharge from time to time and often on my own. And we'll get into that more today on this episode. But if we say that we are drained by all people, this keeps the myth going that introverts hate people, which is not true. I don't hate people, and when it comes to energy, I say that I can be drained by certain people and situations. However, some people and conversations can be quite energizing for me. I've thought this for quite some time, and we will hear from some of you today that you feel the same. So the energy discussion isn't important when it comes to being an introvert, but it's not what defines me. There's so much more to it, including the many wonderful gifts and strengths that introverts have. The concept of an introvert's need for recharge is well known. But with so many different types of introverts, the need for recharge is not the same for everyone. The important thing is to know yourself and what you need. Once you know what you need, you can build this into your weekly plan. Again, I'm not an introvert because I need to recharge. I need to recharge because I'm an introvert. Being a deep thinker is what it's at the heart of my introversion. I turn inward to thought more often than not. This is how I naturally process the world around me, internally rather than externally. So when I'm spending too much time focused externally, this tends to drain my energy. It's also important to note that some introverts may be more in tune with their feelings and the feelings of others. This type of introvert may experience a drain caused by the overwhelming sense of the feelings of others. The important idea here is you need to understand what causes your energy to drain and then build that time for recharge as needed to stay on top of your game. I was thinking about my energy levels one time as I had a series of small group discussions with members of a large team. After facilitating 3 of these in a row, I realized I was feeling quite drained. Often I associate the feeling of drain with something I do not enjoy, such as mindless small talk or networking with strangers. But in this case, I was having great discussions about important topics. I realized that my energy drain is not necessarily caused by things that are unpleasant to me. So what do I do when something I like doing leaves me feeling drained? In this case, I was able to schedule a break right after. Of course, my days are never the same. I do my best not to schedule draining activities back to back. Most days I'm able to plan my schedule. but some days I find myself in consecutive activities that drain me. Back to back meetings are often draining to me. Of course, for this past year, I've had a lot of meetings, but they've all been virtual meetings. Virtual meetings can be just as draining and perhaps in some cases more so. For one, it can be draining to be on camera and have more focused attention on you while you're on camera. Sometimes the sound quality varies. Maybe you're having an internet problem or someone you're trying to listen to is having internet issues, and it can be a strain to try to understand the meeting. And nonverbal cues can be missing. Have you ever told a joke in a virtual meeting but everybody's on mute? And then if you're working from home, having a virtual meeting, trying to balance what's going on at home, controlling the noise, etc., can be quite challenging and draining. And I miss the impromptu conversations after. Now everybody leaves at the same time, and you're not walking back to the office with somebody or hanging out for a minute more to talk about something. You have to plan more of these conversations, and that can be a little more draining and less natural. But like I said, meetings aren't always draining. One day I can recall I had a day jam packed with meetings where either I was in charge of the meeting or I was an important contributor. The meetings were filled with decisions that needed to be made and many variables and situations that need to be worked out. It involved quite a bit of back and forth with my colleagues. As I mentioned, some days like this could be very draining, but this day I was energized by the thinking through the problems and coming up with solutions in a collaborative way. One of my strengths is being analytical and problem solving, and so I enjoy this type of thing. So a meeting may not always be draining. And the key is get to know yourself so you can anticipate which activities are going to be draining and plan when you can take that break to do something that's recharging. So, in general, I try to schedule a little space in between meetings. I may still be doing some work, but at least if I have some alone time, it helps me to recharge. Sometimes meetings are back to back without a break. Maybe I can get a little recharge on the walk between meetings. Right now, like I said, it's all virtual for me, so there's no walk between meetings. Hopefully, I can get up and walk around, but sometimes it's really hard when they are back to back. And sometimes you just have to adjust your thoughts and cope until there will be recharge time. Sometimes the recharge time has to wait until work ends. The drive home was one of my biggest recharge times. Just me, my thoughts, maybe some music. I haven't been doing too much driving this past year, but I still find it necessary to recharge the end of my workday by switching rooms for a bit, having some alone time before hanging out with the family for the evening. I love hanging out with my family, but still, I might need to recharge before I'm ready to do that. So, in planning your schedule and maintaining energy for all the external processing activities you'll encounter during the day, the first step is recognizing those activities that tend to drain you. Does giving a presentation or leading a meeting drain you? Or maybe being on stage, so to speak, wears you out? You can try to arrange your schedule so that you have some time after these type of activities to reflect and relax or recharge. So understand what drains you and what you need to recharge. When you're not fully able to arrange your schedule, at least allow yourself some breaks during the day if possible. Maybe find time later in the evening or early in the morning that you can focus and recharge each day. Also, keep in mind that an extrovert may need some visiting or interacting time with others to recharge after spending time working alone on a task or project. Introverts aren't the only ones who need to recharge. It just probably is going to look different between introverts and extroverts. Extroverts may feel restless or trapped when they spend excessive time alone. They might recharge by visiting with others in the office or needing other social activities that would drain an introvert. Everybody's different, not good or bad. When you begin to understand what drains you, what types of recharge work best, you can better maintain your energy and focus. Like I said, I found that not all people drain me, but certain people and situations do. My wife is my best friend and a fellow introvert. Spending time with her can be very energizing or recharging. She says she feels the same way about me, but I think I might be a little more draining to her sometimes. Another example, I have a big family and I love hanging out with my brothers and sisters. I could spend the day hanging out with them, and I'm usually not drained, but quite the opposite. It can be quite energizing having conversations about the good old days, some of the crazy things we did or happened to us as kids, what we're doing now, the big plans we have. It's generally not draining, quite the opposite. It has been a while for these type of gatherings, and I hope to be able to get back to those soon. So if any of my family's listening, hello, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in the near future. Again, it's not people, but it could be the types of conversations we are having. In the introvert's way, Sophia Demling says, I could make a case that introverts are more genuinely people oriented than extroverts because we're always on the lookout for connections and conversations, whereas extroverts are content with noise and chatter. End quote. That's it for me. I don't enjoy the noise and chatter. So I've really tried to stop feeling guilty about not enjoying the noise and chatter and not apologize for not enjoying it, but looking for those deep connections where I can find them. I can get drained by noisy environments if I'm trying to carry on conversations. However, noisy environments don't always drain me. One vacation day when my kids were younger, I spent 10 hours at an indoor amusement park. My kids with video games, go karts, bumper cars, roller coasters. There was a lot of people there since kids were out of school. My kids had a great time, and they were not tired until the place was closing. I had a great time too. And as I reflected on that, I was thinking about the various opinions I have been reading about introverts and the need for recharge. That day, I had a great time the entire day, and I didn't feel like I needed to be alone. I love my kids, and I love spending time with them. And I wasn't trying to do anything other than have a good time. So for me, the crowd of people and lots of noise and other activities, I didn't feel the need to be alone or recharge. And everybody's different. So I know there's some of you that, you know, would need to, with the same type of day, would need to have some recharge time, maybe even while you were there. So we're introverts are definitely different from each other, and we experience the world differently. Some introverts are going to be more sensitive to sound. I love loud music, especially in the car, as long as I'm not trying to talk. You know, my extroverted daughter is more sensitive to loud music, and we were driving somewhere this past week, and I would turn up the radio and she would turn it right back down. So again, even introverts and extroverts, you know, we can have different levels of sensitivity to things. Too often, people try to put introverts neatly into a box, but we're not all the same. You need to understand how you best operate and your plan for recharge so you can be your best, more productive, and happy self. So, what's draining? For example, for me, people that talk a lot, it's not the person that's draining, it's the continual talking that doesn't allow an introvert to think. Or also, when I'm networking or working in a room, as they say, it's not the people in the room, but it's the need to go outside one's mind and carry on small talk and trying to come up with things to say when it's not natural causes drain. Here's a few other things. When I'm trying to think and because of the interruptions or too many things happening and I can't. Again, thinking for introverts is very natural, but in certain environments, not being able to process your thoughts can be very draining. Strained conversation with strangers or those I don't relate to very well. When I'm trying to come up with topics, especially unfamiliar ones, can be draining. Being on stage is the center of attention for extended periods of time. For me, some examples of this would be running meetings, attending meetings, giving presentations, or conducting training. When do you need to recharge? And once you've determined what causes you to be drained, how do you make time to recharge? Can you block out some time right after that meeting or situation that drained you? When I schedule a little time for recharge, I'm better able to function after a draining situation. It's so important to get to know ourselves, how we function best, what drains and what recharges us. And as much as possible, we can then build recharge opportunities into our daily routine. So we all have different things that energize and drain us, and we have different strategies for recharge. So I reached out on social media and also through some group texts. Some of the social media you could see it's out there, and some of it's in private groups. And thanks to those of you that responded. Having these kinds of conversations help affirm who you are and what you need. Or it may help you understand others' needs. Or you may get some good ideas. I'm excited to share a lot of what I received. Some will be verbatim, and some I may summarize. As you will see, some introverts can be energized by people. It just needs to be the right people and conversations. Connection is important for introverts and extroverts. So I'm going to share some comments I got. They're in no particular order. So, a good conversation with the right person gives me energy, similar to being hugely inspired and creative. What drains me is being surrounded by too much noise that I can't ignore or switch off. I'm energized by a good two-way conversation with someone, being present and listening. I'm drained by people talking nonsense or lots of talk when people are ignorant or ill-informed with lots of noise. So again, a couple examples. A good conversation can be quite energizing, and lots of noise can be draining. Somebody else writes, I wouldn't say that I'm energized by socialization, but a deep connection and great conversation doesn't drain me as much as being around a group. I feel energized after a walk, a workout, or reading. Another one, I'm energized by being on my own. Drained by overly talkative people, the chatty ones with nothing positive to say. Recharging for me is curling up alone with my favorite TV shows and junk food. Another person writes, I'm energized by great conversations. I just had a wonderful one today with a friend who's starting her own consulting business. I really enjoy talking about HR, so this certainly energizes me. Exercise as well, of course. A nice long walk with a great podcast is wonderful. Reading and sitting alone with my thoughts are good as well. Group conversations are difficult. I certainly prefer a more intimate gathering. Again, if you're talking about a topic you enjoy, it might be very energizing. Having to be on all the time is also very difficult. With children, it can be especially draining by the end of the day if I can't get some me time. Man, with little children, I've been there. They don't understand mommy or daddy needs some alone time. I think I said in the last episode that, parenting is one of the best things ever, but it can also be the most challenging. I know it was challenging for me when my kids were little. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love my kids. So hopefully you can find some ways to get that mean time when they're little, and they won't stay little for very long. So enjoy it while it lasts. My wife and I, we had we did a babysitting co-op, and so with three other families, and it was really nice. Like we would get date time 3 weeks out of the month, and then we would have all the kids, which I think was about 12 kids, once a month. And the 3 times we were alone, sometimes we'd even just stay home. It was awesome. It was amazing. But man, that one time with 12 kids in the house, that night dragged on. But anyway, so hopefully if you have little kids, you have a partner or spouse, or maybe a good friend or relative, someone that can help you out. Maybe you can trade off, and again, appreciate them while they're young, but I realize they definitely can be a challenge when they don't understand your time to be alone. Okay, so another writes, energizing, running, meditation, talking with good friends, stitching, reading, listening to music. Draining, too many commitments, social or work, prolonged loud noises, too much screen time. Another, the things that energize me also drains me. I have a certain time of the day that I feel able to think deeply. This is the time I use to create a business plan, do research, marketing, call clients. But at the end of this time, my brain has been overdrive, and it's like hitting a wall. I'm unable to process any more data. I eat, I take a nap, then I wake up, have a half a cup of tea, and go on again until later in the evening. And that's important to know too. You can only be energized for so long too. So something might really be, you might get some great work done, but at some point, even though it's energizing, you're going to need a break. So another writes, energizing, clients, nature, friends, cat, draining, bad diet, negativity, certain people who are not a vibrational match. So clients, that's a really interesting one. My wife says the same thing. She's a photographer and graphic designer, and she really likes working one on one with clients. And that can be very energizing for her, really helping them understand their own brand. It's fascinating. She loves it. So, in your work, are you able to create um, create work with the type of clients that give you energy, and hopefully you're giving them energy as well? And if not now, that's something that you can work towards. All right, another one, energy drainers, unproductive meetings, foolishness, being on, video meetings, and they recharge with music, silence, a candlelit shower, and meditation. So another, what energizes me is being with family and close friends, setting goals and actually doing something about them. What drains me is constant noise or talking. My alone time listening to music is how I recharge. Another one, what energizes you? Music, exercise, caffeine. What drains you? Phone calls or being in Zoom reunions. How do you recharge? Going out, listening to music, or working out. Another writes, these days Zoom calls drain me. Video and constant chatter is so exhausting. I have to retreat, listen to music on headphones, read, or just lie down to re-energize. Walks also help. Another, nature, any form, but just spending time in nature. And here's another, I'm an extreme introvert who had a successful career in marketing, international travel, trade shows, public speaking. I managed to create pockets of time to rest or relax wherever in the world I was. I didn't party or drink. Now I work at home, live in a forest. I'm in heaven. Yeah, living in a forest does sound nice to me. And then somebody else writes, too much of anything. Too much talking, socializing, calls, overworking. That's when I start to feel tired. I recharge with naps, young adult fantasy, Netflix, lying on the floor, walks, showers. So, yeah, people have a lot of great recharge strategies. Here's an important one. Um, this person writes, I think the F for feeler in my INFP, and again, that's a Myers-Briggs type. If you don't know, we've talked about that before on the show. So the F in the Myers-Briggs type is for feeling, and some people experience the world more through logic and some more through feeling, actually feeling other people's emotions. Not everybody is like that. So this person writes they can get overloaded by negative news. It can feel emotionally overwhelming, and feeling the other person's emotions. I recharge by limiting news and doing something creative like expressive painting to discharge feelings. So again, if you're more of a feeling introvert, you have to be aware that feeling the feelings of others can cause the need to recharge. Being by myself, reading, journaling, envisioning, with a good cuppa and my favorite essential oil gently diffusing in the background. Another writes, energizing, engaging in stimulating conversations with smart, genuine, generous, and passionate people who are both interesting and interested. I think that's a great point. Interesting and interested. And the same person writes, exhausting, long, boring, uninteresting conversations about meaningless and mundane topics like the weather with clueless people who just want to hear themselves talk. So you may relate to that. Somebody else writes, nature energizes me and lifts my spirits. Too much face-to-face networking drains me. I'm a TV and film lover, so I recharge on the couch. I love massages and Pilates. Somebody else writes, drains too much stimulation, strong energy, large crowds, and recharges intimate conversations, quiet time, body movement, nature, laughing, retreating. Another writes, for me, I love being around people for short bursts, and I love my own company. The sound of my thoughts are so loud that sometimes I forget I haven't spoken to anyone for a day or two, except maybe my husband and dog. I'm confident and don't mind talking in front of a crowd, but I don't like to fight to be heard. That's just annoying and rude. Okay, another writes, I get drained pretty easily. Most outside my house type situations like going to church, family events, or having my kids' friends over. After being drained, I like sitting alone, usually in the bathroom, since it takes my kids a bit longer to find me. Again, this is a parent with young children, like we were talking about. Exercise helps energize me depending on the situation, meaning if I can exercise before the activity, I tend to last longer. But to decompress after the activity, I usually just need time alone. So I put on an audiobook for the kids, and they can also decompress. It just depends on how draining I get that determines what I need to do to recover. Sometimes talking to my husband or a good friend is helpful, but usually sitting on my bed in comfy clothes or hiding in the bathroom are my go-tos. If you have small kids, again, you can probably re- relate to the bathroom piece. Another writes, it's more about what feeds your soul rather than what drains you, if that makes sense. Introverts are internal feeders, extroverts are external feeders. I can be in a crowd as an introvert and be fed, and vice versa for an extrovert. We've all just been conditioned that that isn't the case, and that makes me sad. All right. Working in an open plan office, utterly draining for me as an introvert, nourishing for an extrovert. Needless to say, lockdown and working from home has been a delight. So, have you found that? Have you gone to working in an open plan office to working in a private space at home? Maybe it got better for you this past year. Maybe it got worse. I know I did at work have an office with a door I could close occasionally. Most of the time, it's always open. But at home, I'm back to the open office plan with my wife and kids all around. So that's like I have an open plan here. And of course, there's different strategies you can use for that, but that's another time. Another writes, gosh, things that drain me. Anything with lots of people, even if I'm not interacting with them. A night out at a comedy gig or theater show leaves me exhausted. Also, things like public transport or airports. I think just being around people zaps my energy. Another writes, what drains me is being overwhelmed by too many tasks and obligations. The recharging is what I'm still working on. I do love a good nap, a walk, or some quiet time. Thanks again. I hope you got a lot out of that. I know I did. We're all different. Did you relate to those examples? Are there some things that you may want to try that you haven't tried before? What if you were answering the question right now? What energizes you? What drains you? How do you recharge? And sometimes in our busy lives, we can feel guilty or get guilt from others when we need to take some time for ourselves. We have to remember if we don't take time for ourselves, we won't be nearly as effective in taking care of the others in our lives. But when we are fully charged, we will have what it takes to take on the many responsibilities and challenges that we face daily. So, hopefully, you know what drains you and how you best recharge. If you don't, keep track for a week and start to make some strategies for yourself. Also, other parts of this conversation would be to get proper sleep, diet, exercise, and from time to time taking a vacation, some extended time off. Maybe there's some things that are draining you that you can cut out of your life or maybe reduce. How's your week organized? Where can you schedule recharge time strategically throughout the week and also on the weekends? Again, I'm not an introvert because I need to recharge. I need to recharge because I'm an introvert. Know how you work best. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to connecting with you. Reach out at quietandstrong.com. Email me at david@quietandstrong.com. I'll add social media channels to the show notes. Please comment on social media posts related to this podcast. Send me topics or questions, and we can address those on the show. There's so many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those things to be understood. Let's keep the conversation going. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs, and be strong.